Down tak jalan. Okay. Hello. Hello everyone. Good afternoon and salam Aidilfitri. I'm Rosnita from Excel Academy and I am your host for today's session. Welcome back to our weekly webinar session, and today we have Miss Adila, and she will be sharing on Microsoft Excel and the topic pivot table made easy. So if you have any question regarding this topic, do leave your message in the comment section and Miss Adila will answer them right after her presentation. All right, so let's not wait anymore. Now I pass this floor to Miss Adila.
All right, thank you so much, Kak Rosnita. So, Assalamualaikum and good afternoon to everyone. So, firstly, I would like to wish Selamat Hari Raya for those who are celebrating, and for those who are not, I hope you had a nice long weekend. All right. So, as per mentioned earlier, today we will be covering one of the element inside Microsoft Excel, which is pivot table. So, let me just share my screen to share with all of you what will we be covering for today. All right, so if I move further to the right here, I will start off with the basic of pivot table by explaining to all of you what is pivot table in general. And then we will be looking into how can we create our own pivot table? How can we select our data, place our data? How can we utilize the pivot table fields? How do we remove the field that we no longer required? And also, how can we apply some customization inside our pivot table? And on the second part of today's session, we will go in depth into pivot table, whereby we're looking into sort and filtering inside pivot table. How can you value the filters, such as how do you want to find our top 10, top 5, top 3, etc. And how can we show our show value as, let's say, if you want a percentage of something, you will be able to do that as well inside pivot table. And finally, we will be looking into an element in pivot table called timeline. So for timeline, this is applicable if you have data with dates, right? So these are some of the elements that we'll be looking today. So first, before I go and jump into pivot table, how can we create them and so on. First, I would like to explain what is pivot table in general. So for those who have used pivot table, you may be familiar on what are the uses of pivot table. But for those who have not yet tried this particular function inside Microsoft Excel, pivot table is a way for you to actually analyze your data and summarize your data, and it will come up in a nice summary table where you would be able to find out certain information that you want. So for an example, let's say I give you an example here. Let's go on further down here before we further start. Let's say here I have a small shop. Let's say I'm a 99 Speed Mart here, and I only have three products. Let's say I have product A, B, and also C. And this is the price per unit. So example, for product A, it's 10 ringgit, for product B, it's 12, and product C, it's 14. And this is the sale, this is the number of unit that we managed to sell, number of units sold in a particular month, for an example. So product A, let's say 100 unit, product B, it's 80, and product C is 60. So this is the data for only 1 month, right? So imagine if we have the data from January up until December for the whole year. So how can you actually summarize and quantify? Let's say for product A, what is the total number of units sold from January to December? And for product B, how much is sold, number of units sold from January to December, and that applies the same for product C. So pivot table will help you to identify and summarize those data. And in addition to that, you will be able to look into other information that you may require as well, right? So that is just a gist of what pivot table is all about. Now, if I move to the left side here, I have a simple data, all right, in relation to traveling. These are data belongs to Skywalk travel agents. So in column A here, I have invoice date. In column B, I have the country where their clients or customers choose to go to. And in column C, we have the resort name. In column D, we have the number of days. In column E is the travel method. So if you can see here, there are three types of travel method: plane, we have train, and also we have coach. Coach is also, we call it as when you take bus, all right? So that is travel method. In column F, we have sales, right, in British pounds. In column G, we have cost. In column H, we have price. And in column I, we have the holiday ID. So for every purchase or orders made by the client or customers, Skywalk travel agents will provide them a unique holiday ID for each of their customers or clients. Okay. So we have data here from column A until column I. In column L here, I'm just showing here some of the summary of data that we can create using pivot table. Example first, we want to identify expenditure by country. So when we talk about expenditure by country, what you would imagine is you would have a summary of a list of country and also how much is the expenditure, right? The cost as per in column G. Second is the expenditure by resort name. So earlier we want to know by country. Second, we want to know by resort name. In column D, we want to know number of days by country. So we wanted to analyze data to see for each of the country, all right, which are the country that the client loves to go to and they spend longer number of days there, right? So number 3 is about that number of days by country. And number 4, expenditure by travel method. So we want to see how much is spent, all right, the cost for each of the travel method, as per plane, coach, and also train. So these are simple pivot table that we can do. So we will try and do this 4 first, right? So to create a pivot table, first is about selecting your data. So usually what I would do is I will just select all of the data here, inclusive of the title up there, all right, under row 3, all right. And then I will just select all of the data here. And then what you need to do is you need to go to the Insert tab up here. And on the most left, you would see Pivot Table. So you can just click on the Pivot Table. So under table or range here, you have selected your data source already. So that's fine because I have select from cell A3 until the last line of the data. Now here, what you can see here is you have an option. Either you want your pivot table to be in a new worksheet or you want it to be in the existing worksheet, same as per your raw data source. So it's up to you. If you click on new worksheet, okay, let me show you an example. If I click OK here, you can see it's in a different sheet. So sometimes maybe you don't want the pivot table to be in the same sheet as per your raw data, you can just choose new worksheet. But if let's say you want it to be in the same worksheet as per your data, so here what I would do is I will click on the existing worksheet and don't forget to input the location. So here you can just select any cell where you want to place your pivot table. So what I would do is I would just click here under cell L12 where I want to have my pivot table here for expenditure by country for item number 1. Once you click on the location, you can just click OK. And on the right side here, you would see the pivot table fields will appear. So we have 4 quadrants here. Top left, we have filter. Top right, we have column. Bottom left, we have rows. And bottom right, we have values. So column, as you can imagine, it's column, all right, it's vertical. For rows, it's horizontal. Values, they will show the data in value figure, all right, in numbers. And filter is when you would be able to filter any certain item that you want. Okay, so first let's go through the 4 items here and then we will see how we can utilize the filter as well. So first, expenditure by country. So what I would do is I will click on country here, all right. And then for expenditure, I will use the cost. So I will just click on cost here, all right. So here, if you can see, we now have our summary or our pivot table where we can see our expenditure by country. We found out that actually Australia, the total expenditure is 210, England 52, France 980, Germany 240, and so on. Okay, so this is for the first one, expenditure by country. So for the second one, expenditure by resort name, what you can do is you can either use the same pivot table here. All right, you just click on any part of the pivot table. And then what you can do is we want expenditure by resort name. So country, I will need to remove it. I will untick country. And then I will only tick on resort name. So now this is the summary for expenditure by resort name. Barcelona £249, Berlin 220, and so on. So this is the case whereby you only want a single pivot table. What if you want each pivot table for each of the item? So you want one pivot table for expenditure by country, second pivot table for expenditure by resort name. You just need to do the same method, all right, the same steps. You can just highlight all relevant data, go to Insert tab, click on Pivot Table. So here I will just click on Existing Worksheet, and location I will just choose next to the first pivot table here under cell O12, and then I will click OK. So let's say if I want to do for the third one, okay, number of days by country. So I'll just click on country and I will just click on number of days. So from here, we can see a lot of people love to spend their time longer in Spain, all right, followed by Australia. And then the third one is France. So this is for the third item, which is number of days by country. Now, let's try and do the final pivot table, which is the expenditure by travel method. So same method and steps apply. Highlight all relevant data. Go to Insert tab. Click on Pivot Table. Choose Existing Worksheet or New Worksheet, up to you. If you choose Existing Worksheet, make sure you update the location here. So I'll just create it down here below the third one and then click OK. Now we want expenditure by travel method. So I'll just click on travel method and I'll just click on the cost. So from here, I know for coach, all right, for those who take the bus, it only costs them total for the whole customer is 267, plane is 3083, and train is 772. Okay, so these are simple pivot tables based on the four requirements here. All right. So we have learned how to select our data, place our data either in existing worksheet or new worksheet, and then we learn about pivot table fields whereby if you click anywhere inside your pivot table or when it is your first time creating the pivot table, you can see on the right side, we have four quadrants that shows as pivot table fields. Okay. So next, let's have a look on how we can remove the field. So let's say for an example, you no longer want country, you can untick here. All right, so you can see now it no longer appears here. Or you can also click on the drop down arrow under country, and second from the bottom, second last from the bottom, you can see you have the option of choosing remove field. So you can choose that as well. Okay. So that is how you can remove the field. Now for the final item, field settings. So this is how we want to customize name, value, etc. So let's say here we're using the number of days by country, the third one here. All right, number of days by country. So what we can do is, let's say for an example here, all right, now it's showing the sum of number of days. All right, they add up all of the number of days based on the data here under column D. You can change it to other element as well, all right, to other value as well. So how can you do that is, you go to sum of number of days under the values quadrant, click on the drop down arrow, and then you choose the last one that shows value field settings. Okay. So first, to customize your name, now it's showing as sum of number of days. Let's say you just want the title to be number of days. So you can do it up here under custom name. Just put the title as per what you want. And then if you can see the value down here, you can choose either you want it to be sum, count, average, maximum, minimum product, right? Or you want it to be standard deviation, variance, etc. So you can choose a lot of other value field for the pivot table itself. All right, so here I will just remain it as sum, okay, and then I will change the name as number of days, and then I will click OK. So if you can see here, the name has also been customized, all right, to number of days. So that is where you can find the value field settings or field settings, whereby you can customize the name and choose which area or which value you want it to appear under your pivot table, right? So these are the basic elements under creating your pivot table. Other than that, other than you can just tick and tick, all right, which one do you want under your column, rows, value, or filters. You can also drag the title. So for an example here, let's say we are, let's just delete this pivot table. Let's just retain one. So for this one, expenditure by resort name, what I would do is I will change it into the first one, expenditure by country. So I'll just untick, all right. Other than tick and tick, you can actually drag the title itself into one of the quadrants. So if I want country here, I'll just click on country, drag it, and release it under rows quadrant. And now we have our expenditure by country. What if I want to also utilize column and also filter? So under column, I would like to have travel method, right? So now you can see under column, we have the coach, plane, and also train. And let's say for row, I don't want it to be country. I want it to be under filter. Resort name, I put it under row. So if you can see from the pivot table fields here, this is what I put under each of the quadrant. Under filter, I put country. Under column, I put travel method. Under rows, I put the resort name, and under values, I wanted to know how much has it cost me, all right, to run this travel agency, and how much do I have to pay for each of my client. Okay, so here is the data. Let me just edit the alignment here so everything is centered. So you can see here we have a data, okay, which is the resort name, Barcelona, Berlin, Black Forest, etc. That is under the row. Under the column, we have the coach, plane, and also train, the travel method. And under the values, we have the sum of cost. So this is the cost, right? And up here, if you can see country all, you can actually select which country do you want to see. Okay, so this is the function of filters, all right, and also column, rows, and values all together. So what does this pivot table tells you? Basically, it tells you, it provides you a nice summary whereby for each of the resort name, example for Barcelona, you know that for coach, all right, the cost is 25 pounds, okay, to take the bus, like the total, the sum. For planes is 52, and for train is 172. So that is the summary that you get. But for this one, this list, it's showing for all of the country. So what if you only want to see certain countries only? So here you can just click on the select multiple item. Okay, you can untick everything first, and you can just tick those countries that you want to see. So example, we only want to see for Spain. All right, let's just click on Spain, click OK. And now if you can see, it's only showing the resort name for Spain only, which are Barcelona, Granada, Madrid, Malaga, Nerja, and also Seville. And the grand total, the values for each has also been updated. We have 25 for coach, 1383 for plane, 272 for train, and the grand total is 1680. So if you want to go back to normal, you can just click back on the filter here. You can click on all, all right? And now if you can see, now it's back to all of the countries. So here you can select multiple countries as well. Let's say you only want countries with that starts with the letter S. So you can just click on Saudi Arabia and also Spain. When you click OK, they will only show the resort name which are under those two countries that starts with the letter S that you have chose earlier. Okay, so that is about creating your pivot table. Now, the next part is I want to show you how we can sort and filter our pivot table. Right, let's try and do this. All right, so first, if you click on the drop down here, row labels for an example, you can see you have several sorting and filter option. First, you can sort by alphabetical order from A to Z. All right, that is what is happening right now from the letter B until the letter T. So if you want it to be the other way around, from letter Z to A, you can also do that as well. Just click on sort Z to A. All right, so now it's the other way around. It starts with the letter T and it ends with the letter B for Barcelona. Other than that, more sort options. Okay, so here you can actually choose, all right, you want it to be in ascending or descending, and here you can choose if you want to, let's say you want to see the highest value to the lowest value, you can actually choose descending here, and you change the drop down arrow title from resort name to sum of cost. When you click on OK, you can see the grand total is nicely sorted, all right, which is the highest one is for Seville, 467, and the lowest one is from Bognor, which only costs £2, okay, £2 British. So that is how you can filter, you can sort as well. So other than alphabetical, you can click on more sort options, descending, and you can choose the title here, right? Either you want for resort name for alphabetical. If you want for numbers, just click on sum of cost. Right, so that is the sort and filter. Other than that, you can also do label filters. Okay, if you want certain item that begins with certain letters, for an example, ends with certain letters, okay, greater than or less than, you can choose that as well. For value filters, you can also show that as well. If you only want to see item which is greater than £100, for an example, you can set your value filter. And down here, you can select certain resort name only. Okay, you can do that as well through the drop down arrow here. So that is sort and filter. That is example for under row labels. And if you click on column labels, it's the same. You can sort from A to Z, Z to A. And if you click on more sort option, you can actually choose, okay, if you want to show in descending or ascending order for travel method and also sum of cost. So for sort and filter, it does not only apply for your normal data, right? It can also be applied under your pivot table. So that is sort and filter pivot table. All right, so next what I would like to show is how can you identify your top 10, top 5 for an example. So here I want to see the top ones for my resort name. So I will click on row labels. What you can do is you can click on value filters. Okay, above the search item here, you would see your value filters and choose top 10 at the most bottom one, right? The bottom part here, you can see there's top 10. Click on top 10. So here you can change it. Let's say you only want your top 5. You can choose that as well. You want top 3, top 20. It's up to you. So let's say I want to see what are my top 5 resort. Okay. So I'll change it to 5 here and then I click OK. So now if you can see, my own pivot table has changed. All right. It only showing the top 5. Okay. Where the first place belongs to Seville, second is Malaga, third is Port of Spain, fourth is Granada, and the fifth one is the Paris Euro Disney, the Disneyland. Okay, so that is how you want to check your top 10, top 5, top 3. You can just use the value filters, click on the drop down arrow, go to value filters, and just click on the top 10. So it does not only apply to top 10, you can choose top 7, top 8, just change the number over here. All right, so that is for value filter. Other than that, okay, we want to see if we can see, we want to show the value as, all right, percentage of something. So let's say we want to know what is the percentage out of the total. Okay, so here what you can do is you can just click on, you can just click on the rows here. Let me just check over here. For show value as, you can just right click on the, let's say for grand total here, right, just place your cursor on any part of the amount that you have in your pivot table, right click on your mouse and then choose show value as. When you click on show value as, you can see you can show it in the form of percentage of the grand total, percentage of column total, etc. Right? So let's say I choose percentage of grand total. So now you can see, all right, what is the total. So for an example, let's say my manager, all right, I'm working under Skywalk Travel Agents, and my manager asked me, look, Adila, I want to see in terms of percentage, okay, how much does civil contributes to, okay, out of the total cost that we have to bear for last year, for an example, and I want to know the percentage for each of the travel method for coach, plane, and also train. So we can do this by using pivot table. Just use the element of show value as, all right, then you can get the percentage of the grand total if you want to. So from here, I know for Seville, all right, it contributes to 26.43%, right? Malaga 20.94 and so on. So I would know the percentage of it. So just right click, show value as, and here I'm just using the percentage of grand total. So here if you can see, they only use the percentage of grand total for all of these five only, my top five. If I want it to be for all, right? So I'll just clear filter. So now I can see what is the percentage when I have all of my resort name. So for Seville, 11.33 and so on. And here I can see for coach, all right, only 6.48% is for paying the cost for taking the bus. For plane, it's 74.79. And for train, it's 18.73. So that is how you want to see in terms of percentage. Okay. And the final one is timeline. Okay, so for timeline here, so timeline it applies if you have data in relation to date. So here if you can see we have data when it comes to invoice date, all right, for the data of 2022 from the month of January until December. So just make sure you have dates there. So here let me just amend this pivot table first, all right. So first show value as, I don't want it to be in terms of percentage. I'll just choose no calculation. So it's back to normal. And then for timeline, okay, for invoice, what I would do is you right click on the pivot table field. So you find the title of the data that you have date. In this case, we have the invoice date. So I'll just right click on the invoice date. And then if you can see at the bottom here, we have add as timeline. So click on add as timeline. And you can see from here, we have our timeline here. So I will just expand it further, all right, so we can see from January until December. All right, one nice thing about timeline is, all right, so now you can see the grand total is 4122, all right, for all resort name and for the month from January until December. So let's say if I only want to see for January only, right? Let's say during a meeting, my manager wants to know, so how much is the cost, the expenditure for January? I'll just click on January here and my pivot table will be updated accordingly as well. So if you can see from here, for the month of January, all right, we have spent £100 and it's for one resort only, which is the Great Barrier Reef in Australia. If you want to see January and February, you just expand this to February and now it's showing for Jan and Feb as well. So this is the concept of timeline inside pivot table, whereby you can actually select which data or which timeline that you want your pivot table to reflect. So if you want for the first quarter, all right, January until March, this is for the first quarter. If you want for the first half of the year, you can take from January until June. Okay, you can just expand it accordingly. So now the blue color is from January until June. And you can see the grand total has also been updated as well. And if you want for the whole year, just expand it from January to December and you can see it's showing the cost for the whole year. Similarly, if you want only for certain month, just click on certain month. Let's say you only want to see for November. So for November, people only travels to Spain, which is to Malaga and Barcelona, and the expenditure, the total cost is 237. All right. So there you go. So first we have discovered about how we can create pivot table, how can we select data, place your data either in new worksheet or in existing worksheet. And then we also learn about pivot table fields, whereby you would have your 4 quadrant. And then how do you remove your field? And under field settings here, so under field setting as well, you can see that you can actually customize your value or your name, right? So if you click on the value field setting, custom name, you can customize your name and you can choose your value as well. Currently, we are keeping it at sum. And then afterwards, we are going in depth about how we can sort and filter our pivot table. So you can see we can do this in alphabetical order. We can actually filter by label, filter by value. And if you click on more sort option, you can actually arrange your data in a way if you want it in ascending or descending order. And this applies for alphabets and also for numbers. And then next we have the top 10. All right, how can you identify your top 3, top 5, top 1, etc.? Just use the value filter here and then just choose the bottom one, which is top 10. And then if you want to show your value as a percentage of certain total, we can just right click, show value as, and choose if you want it in the terms of percentage of grand total. So you have it in percentage. And finally, what did I show you earlier is if you have data in relation to dates, you can actually create your own timeline, which can be synced with your pivot table. What you need to do is make sure you go back to your pivot table fields. How can you do this? You can put your cursor anywhere inside your pivot table, then your pivot table fields will appear. Go to the title with the date. Example here, we have the invoice date. Right click on the title and you can just click on add as timeline here. All right. So you would get your timeline and then you can play around with your timeline here if you want to see for certain month only, right? Or for other month. So here it's showing for 2022, January until December. You can also see for the following year, all right, for 2023, if you have data for 2 years. So that is what I wanted to cover for today. So I hope what I've shared would be as a reminder or as a reference, all right, for us to learn more about pivot table and also for the additional item that I've covered, such as the sort and filter, the top 10, show value as percentage and timeline. I hope this can further enhance your work, all right, or even if you are still studying out there, to help you in terms of your data analysis or data summarization. Okay. So with that, thank you so much. I will be taking questions if you have any. So let's go back to Excel Academy if that's okay. Right. Thank you so much, everyone.
Okay, so let's see if we have any question. We give at least 2 minutes to see if any question. Tak ada question. All right. I guess no question for today. Hopefully everyone understand the explanation from Miss Adila. Thank you so much, Adila, for the great sharing. Also, to everyone for joining our learning hour session today. So, as shown on the screen right now, these are our upcoming public courses. For those who are interested to learn more about any of these courses, please follow our social media platform for more details and contact us for registration. And if you missed today's session, you can watch it on our Facebook page and YouTube channel. With that, we see you again next week, same time with different topic. Okay, thank you and goodbye. Thank you, Adila. Bye.
All right. Thank you so much for